Hey guys, welcome back to Hoosier Hardware, and today I want to go over just sort of a basic entry-level gaming build that I wanted to put together, with the idea here being that you can upgrade this system down the road once the GPU and RAM apocalypse. Actually, I'm not sure what multiple apocalypses really is, but whenever those two things are over, both on the GPU and the RAM side, you can always add more to this build and expand it to meet your needs. Now, as far as a budget goes, I was trying to keep it kind of close to the $500 mark, but I wasn't willing to compromise on a couple of things. Most notably, I wasn't willing to go below 8GB of RAM, I was not willing to go below 1TB of storage, and I definitely didn't want to go below a 1050 Ti on the graphics card side of things. So let's go ahead and go through some of the rationale here. Now for my CPU, I picked the Ryzen 5 1400 because even with the stock cooler, you can overclock this thing a little bit. You get 4 cores and 8 threads, and it will be just an overall solid gaming chip and will be able to handle graphics cards all the way up to really in that 1070 range before it becomes a severe bottleneck on the entire system. And the biggest reason I picked the Ryzen 5 1400 over a Ryzen 3 counterpart is because you get that simultaneous multi-threading, which will give you a generally better experience when you are doing anything that's heavily multi-threaded. And paired with the Ryzen 5 1400 is this MSI B350 board. We went B350 here to save a little bit of money on the motherboard instead of going X370, because I don't really anticipate many people going with an SLI setup in the future anyways. And keeping with the B350 board here, it does still allow us to overclock that Ryzen 5 1400 fairly well. Also worth pointing out with this motherboard, and it's one of the big reasons why I ended up going with it over some of the cheaper micro ATX layout motherboards with the B350 chipset, is I still get 4 RAM DIMM slots there because I'm using 2 of them for my 8GB of RAM to start out with the hope that RAM costs go down in the future, at which point you could then add another 8GB and end up with a very respectable 16GB for this gaming build. Now for the GPU, and you'll notice that it is currently out of stock, even though PC Part Picker still has it listed as in stock. This is a GTX 1050 Ti. It was actually listed at $220, and even though this one is out of stock, if you're a little bit patient and wait around for a day or two and frequently check websites, you will be able to find a 1050 Ti for about this price point. So really insert whatever GTX 1050 Ti you can get a good deal on, and that's what we'd go with here. And we already mentioned RAM once, but this is the 8GB DDR4 2400 MHz kit I went with. If you can find RAM that runs at a faster speed, because Ryzen does really like those faster speeds, I would actually recommend going ahead and bumping up your speed, so long as you're not paying a huge price premium for it, because although you may get some extra frames here and there, it's also not to the point where it's going to be completely detrimental if you're at 2400 MHz instead of something like 3000 MHz. For storage, it's pretty simple. Just get a cheap 1TB hard drive, preferably at least 7200 RPM on that drive to keep speed pretty high. In this case, we have a Seagate Barracuda, but if you find a Western Digital or an HGST model that is similar capacity with similar speed, then you can go with whatever's cheaper here. Or if you want to cut a little bit of corners and bump it down to 500GB and save some money, that's also another option here. For the power supply, I wanted to leave plenty of room for future upgradability, which is why we're going with this Thermaltake 700 watt unit, which is 80 plus certified. Obviously, you would prefer to have something like 80 plus bronze, but again, because we're on such a budget here and trying to save money wherever we can, this is a pretty good option, especially if you can get it while it's still with a rebate of $15. You can get it for about $40 with that rebate, or $55 without it. But obviously, as a commodity component like PSUs kind of tend to be, if you find a better deal or know that you won't need that extra wattage down the road, then adjust this however the build fits your needs. And lastly, for the case, we do need an ATX chassis because our motherboard is a full ATX motherboard. In this case, we're taking the Thermaltake Versa H21, which does tend to be a pretty cheap case. With a $20 rebate, if you're willing to jump through that hoop, you can get it for $20 flat. Now, for features, this case is nothing special. Looks like it has plenty of storage mounts, and it does look like it has some cable management behind the motherboard tray, but definitely nothing special here. And this is all about just saving as much money as possible. Obviously, if it's something that you care about, beyond just the build process, you may want to go ahead and invest a little bit more money in the chassis, but normally I wouldn't worry too much about that, and taking a $20 case if it's available is just fine. So as of filming this PC comes out to $627.48, but that number is gonna just fluctuate wildly, especially as that particular graphics card either goes up or down in its pricing. And also, like I said, just remember with builds like this is just to sort of give you an idea of what you can get for about $625 or so right now. Obviously, if you are taking this build and adapting it, you can swap out less storage to save some money. You can go with a different case, may cost you a little more money. You could probably definitely save a little bit of money by going with a lower wattage power supply. Again, this is just sort of a reference to give you a starting point if you're considering building a gaming PC right now in what I can only describe as a very hostile market. So this is where I kick it back to you guys. I'm very curious to know if you guys have been building PCs during this GPU shortage / RAM shortage, and if you have built a PC in the last several weeks, let us know in the comments down below what types of specs you were able to fit into it and for what price point. Let us know down below. And of course, if you like this content, give it a like, a share, subscribe, and a comment down below. That's all very helpful to the channel. You can follow me on Instagram and on Twitter at Hoosier Hardware. They're the same tag for your convenience. And also, as always, I'll let YouTube go ahead and queue up a couple more videos from my channel for you to watch. I'm Shane with Hoosier Hardware, and I'll see you guys in the next video.